Marcus Johnson worked late at his office on the 40th floor of Sterling Tower. As CEO of Sterling Innovations, one of Chicago's fastest-growing tech companies, late nights were normal for him. The clock on his wall showed 11:30 p.m. Most employees had gone home hours ago. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and stood up to stretch. He needed a break from reviewing quarterly reports. He walked to the large window that gave him a perfect view of Chicago's bright city lights. At 45 years old, Marcus had everything most people dreamed of: success, wealth, respect, but something was always missing. He decided to grab coffee from the break room down the hall. As he walked, he noticed the cleaning crew had started their nightly routine. Most were familiar faces he nodded to politely. But tonight, someone new caught his eye. A woman in a gray janitor uniform was mopping the floor near the conference room. She kept her head down, focused on her work. Something about her movements seemed familiar to Marcus. The way she shifted her weight from one foot to another. The careful, methodical way she worked. Marcus slowed his steps. The woman had her back to him, but he felt a strange pull toward her. He couldn't explain it, but his heart started beating faster. "Good evening," Marcus said politely as he approached. The woman jumped slightly, clearly not expecting anyone to speak to her. She kept her face turned away and mumbled, "Evening, sir." Even her voice triggered something in Marcus's memory. He stood there, coffee forgotten, trying to place why this stranger seemed so familiar. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm Marcus Johnson, the CEO," he said, extending his hand out of habit. The woman hesitated, then slowly turned to face him. When she finally looked up, Marcus felt the floor drop from beneath his feet. Those eyes, he would know those eyes anywhere. Warm brown with flecks of gold near the pupils. Eyes he had looked into countless times in college. Eyes he thought had closed forever 15 years ago. "Amara," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The mop clattered to the floor. The woman's face drained of color. For a brief moment, her carefully constructed mask fell away, and Marcus saw recognition flash across her features before fear replaced it. "I'm sorry, sir. You have the wrong person," she said quickly, bending to pick up the mop. "My name is Diana Brown." But Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The world narrowed to this one impossible moment. Amara Wilson, his college sweetheart, the love of his life, the woman who had supposedly died in a humanitarian mission explosion in Sierra Leone 15 years ago, was standing in front of him, alive. "Amara, it's you. I know it's you," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "Please, sir. I need this job," she whispered urgently. "You're mistaken." A security guard walked by, glancing curiously at them. The woman called Diana quickly looked down and resumed mopping. "We need to talk," Marcus said quietly. "Please." "I finish at midnight," she finally said, so softly he almost missed it. "The coffee shop across the street. But if you tell Agnon—" "I won't," Marcus promised. "Not until I understand." She nodded once, then moved down the hallway with her cleaning cart, leaving Marcus standing there, his world completely upended. He returned to his office in a daze, falling into his chair. On his desk sat a small frame he kept turned away from visitors. A photo of him and Amara at graduation, young and full of dreams. He picked it up with trembling hands. After 15 years of believing she was dead, after all the grief and heartbreak, Amara Wilson was alive. And in less than 30 minutes, you would finally learn why. The coffee shop across from Sterling Tower was nearly empty at midnight. Marcus sat in a corner booth, his hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee he hadn't touched. His mind raced with questions as he watched the door. At 12 minutes past midnight, she walked in. She had changed out of her janitor uniform into simple jeans and a gray sweater. Her hair, previously hidden under a cap, now fell in short curls around her face. She looked different from the Amara he remembered, thinner, with lines of worry around her eyes, but unmistakably her. She ordered a tea before joining him, sitting across the table with her back to the wall, eyes constantly checking the door. "You look good, Marcus," she said quietly. "I've seen your picture in business magazines. You achieved everything you wanted." Marcus couldn't take his eyes off her face. "Amara, how is this possible? I went to your memorial service. They said no one survived the explosion." She stared into her tea. That's what everyone was supposed to believe. 15 years, Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I mourned you for 15 years. Pain flashed across her face. I wanted to contact you so many times, but I couldn't. Why? Marcus leaned forward. What happened in Sierra Leone? Amara took a deep breath. Our humanitarian mission found something we weren't supposed to find. Evidence of illegal arms deals involving powerful people. American people. She spoke so softly Marcus had to lean closer. The explosion wasn't an accident. It was planned to silence us. Marcus felt cold. But you survived. She nodded. I was outside the building when it happened. The blast threw me into a ravine. Local villagers found me unconscious. My ID was gone. I had head injuries, broken ribs, a shattered leg. She touched her left leg. When I woke up 2 weeks later, I had no memory of who I was. Marcus reached across the table, but she pulled her hands away. By the time my memory returned, I learned everyone was looking for bodies, not survivors. Then I discovered something worse. Her eyes darkened. Someone came to the village asking questions about American survivors. The next day, the family who had been caring for me was found dead. My God, Marcus whispered. I knew then that whoever was behind the explosion was cleaning up loose ends. They thought I was dead, and I needed to stay that way, so I ran. She looked at him with sad eyes. I've been running for 15 years, Marcus. Different names, different cities. Never staying anywhere long enough to be noticed. But you're here now, in my building. She smiled sadly. I came back to Chicago 6 months ago because my mother is sick, cancer. I couldn't stay away anymore. I took the night cleaning job because it was cash payment, few questions asked. I never imagined you would be there. She shook her head. I never wanted to put you in danger. Danger? Amara, what are you talking about? These people, they're still out there. Still powerful. If they find out I'm alive, that I remember what I saw. She left the sentence unfinished. Marcus reached across the table again, and this time she didn't pull away. Her hands were cold in his warm ones. Who are they, Amara? Tell me. I have resources now, connections. I can help protect you. She looked at their joined hands. The person behind it all, his name is Richard Westfield. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. Westfield? The defense contractor? Yes, she looked up, surprised. You know him? Marcus's face hardened. He's been trying to buy into my company for the past 6 months. He's coming to my office tomorrow for a meeting. Fear filled Amara's eyes. Then I need to disappear again. Tonight. She started to stand, but Marcus held her hands firmly. No, he said. No more running. Not alone. Whatever this is, we face it together. For the first time, a flicker of hope appeared in Amara's tired eyes. Marcus woke early the next morning, his mind clear despite sleeping only 3 hours. He had brought Amara to his penthouse guest room after their coffee shop meeting. For safety, he told her, but really, he feared if she left his sight, she might vanish again. He made coffee and checked his phone. A text from his assistant confirmed his 10 a.m. meeting with Richard Westfield. Marcus's jaw tightened. The man he had once considered a potential business partner was now his enemy. Amara emerged from the guest room, wearing clothes Marcus had asked his housekeeper to leave for her. Her eyes were tired but determined. You should have let me go, she said, accepting the coffee he offered. 15 years of running hasn't kept you safe, Marcus replied. It's time for a different approach. They sat at his kitchen island, the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Chicago. Westfield wants to invest $50 million in my company, Marcus explained. He's been pushing hard for this meeting for months. He doesn't just want your company, Amara said. He wants the government security contracts you recently won, where technology would give him access to even more sensitive information. Marcus nodded. I suspected his interest was too convenient. He reached for his phone. I'm calling the FBI. Amara grabbed his wrist. No, Westfield has people everywhere. When I was in Sierra Leone, we discovered he had contacts in multiple government agencies. That's how he knew about our findings before we could report them. Then what do we do? Marcus asked. Amara sipped her coffee, thinking. We need proof. Hard evidence that connects him to the Sierra Leone bombing. Do you have any? I did. Before the explosion, I copied files from the weapon caches we found. Serial numbers, shipping documents, photographs. Her face fell, but I lost everything in the explosion. Marcus paced the kitchen. There must be other evidence. 15 years is a long time. Westfield can't have covered every track. Amara watched him. In college, she had admired his strategic mind. Now, as a successful CEO, he had refined that skill. "What about your meeting with him today?" she asked. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. "Yes, the meeting." He sat back down. "Westfield doesn't know you're alive. He doesn't know we've connected. We have the element of surprise." "What are you thinking?" "I'll meet with him as planned. My office is equipped with recording devices for all business meetings. I'll get him talking about Sierra Leone." Amara shook her head. "He's too careful. He won't just confess." "Not directly," Marcus agreed. "But I can mention that Sterling Innovations is expanding our humanitarian division. We're planning work in Sierra Leone and other West African countries. You think that will rattle him?" "I think it might make him reveal something, and while I'm meeting with him..." Marcus hesitated. Amara understood immediately. "While you're meeting with him, I could search his things. His assistant, his car, his briefcase." She nodded slowly. "It's risky, very risky. Riskier than running forever? Than looking over your shoulder for another 15 years? Amara stood and walked to the window. The city stretched below, busy with morning traffic. Somewhere out there, her mother was fighting cancer, not knowing her daughter was alive. "You built all this while I was hiding in shadows," she said softly. "You never gave up." Marcus joined her at the window. "I built it to forget the pain of losing you," he said honestly. Nothing filled that emptiness. Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass. "If we do this," she said, "we need backup plans. If anything goes wrong, you need to protect yourself. Deny knowing me. Say I was just a janitor who tricked you." "That's not going to happen," Marcus said firmly. "Promise me," she insisted. Before he could answer, his phone rang. His assistant's name flashed on the screen. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to bother you early, but Mr. Westfield's office called. He wants to move the meeting up to 9 a.m. They said it's urgent." Marcus looked at his watch. It was 7:30 a.m. "That gives us less time to prepare," he told Amara after ending the call. "Or he knows something," she said, fear creeping into her voice. Marcus took her hand. "Then we move now, before he can set whatever trap he's planning." Their fingers intertwined, a connection reforged after 15 years apart, as they prepared to face the man who had torn their lives apart. Marcus entered Sterling Tower at 8:30 a.m., walking with purpose through the lobby. Amara followed 10 minutes later, wearing a business suit borrowed from Marcus's housekeeper, her hair styled differently, and glasses on her face. They had agreed not to acknowledge each other. In his office, Marcus prepared for the meeting while his assistant briefed him. Mr. Westfield arrived early. He's waiting in the conference room with two men, his assistant and someone he introduced as his security consultant. Marcus frowned. Security consultant? That's new. When his assistant left, Marcus quickly texted Amara, *Westfield brought extra security. Be careful, *. At exactly 9 a.m., Marcus entered the conference room with a practiced smile. Richard Westfield stood to greet him, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and cold blue eyes. His handshake was firm, his smile calculated. "Marcus, thank you for accommodating the schedule change," Westfield said. "Of course, though I admit I'm curious about the urgency." Westfield gestured to the chairs. "Let's just say other opportunities have arisen that require my attention this afternoon." As they sat down, Marcus noticed Westfield's security consultant, a hard-faced man with watchful eyes, position himself near the door. The assistant placed Westfield's briefcase beside his chair. Meanwhile, Amara moved through the executive floor, playing the role of a marketing consultant. She nodded professionally at employees who passed by. When she reached the executive bathroom, she slipped inside and texted Marcus, *in position. Where's the briefcase, *? In the conference room, Marcus guided the conversation toward business while watching the briefcase from the corner of his eye. "Before we discuss investment terms," Marcus said, "I'd like to share our company's vision. Sterling Innovations is expanding beyond technology. We're launching a humanitarian division next month." Westfield's expression didn't change, but his fingers tapped once on the table. "Humanitarian work?" That's quite different from security software. Not really. Our security systems will protect aid workers in dangerous regions. Marcus paused. We're starting in West Africa. Sierra Leone, specifically. The tapping stopped. Westfield's eyes narrowed slightly. Sierra Leone? Interesting choice. Troubled history there. Yes, Marcus agreed, especially 15 years ago. Several humanitarian missions ended in tragedy. The security consultant shifted his weight, eyes now fixed on Marcus. Westfield's smile remained, but didn't reach his eyes. Ancient history. The region has changed, though I question if it's worth the investment risk. Marcus leaned forward. Some things are worth the risk, don't you think? Especially when it comes to uncovering the truth. Truth is often subjective, Mr. Johnson, Westfield replied, his voice hardening. And sometimes dangerous. The meeting atmosphere changed, tension filling the room. Marcus's phone vibrated. A text from Amara. Asterisk. Need distraction now asterisk. Would anyone like coffee? Marcus asked suddenly. When Westfield's assistant volunteered to get it, Marcus insisted on showing him personally where the special executive coffee was kept. As they left, Marcus texted Amara. Asterisk now. Security still in room asterisk. Amara moved quickly down the hallway toward the conference room. She passed by the open door, glancing in. Westfield was checking his phone while the security man looked out the window. She waited until the security man's back was fully turned, then slipped into the room, staying low behind the conference table. The briefcase sat beside Westfield's chair. In the break room, Marcus deliberately knocked over a coffee mug, creating noise and confusion to extend the distraction. Amara silently reached for the briefcase, easing it open just enough to peek inside. She spotted a tablet and quickly removed it, replacing it with a similar weighted tablet she had prepared. Just as she closed the briefcase, Westfield stood up. Something's not right, he said sharply to his security. Check the hall. Amara froze beneath the table as the security consultant moved toward the door. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain they could hear it. Just then, Marcus's voice boomed from the hallway. Mr. Westfield, I've just received an urgent call you should hear about. As Westfield and his security looked toward the door, Amara slipped out the other side of the table and through the secondary door of the conference room, clutching the stolen tablet against her chest. In her ear, through the small communicator they had raped, she heard Marcus say calmly, I believe we may need to reschedule our meeting, Mr. Westfield. Something unexpected has come up. She knew what those words meant. They had what they needed. Now came the dangerous part, escaping before Westfield realized what had happened. Amara moved quickly through the Sterling Tower hallways, the stolen tablet hidden inside her jacket. Her heart raced, but she kept her face calm, nodding at employees who passed by. She took the stairs instead of the elevator, too risky to be trapped in a small space if Westfield's men discovered the theft. 3 floors down, she entered a bathroom and locked herself in a stall. With shaking hands, she examined the tablet. It was locked with a fingerprint scanner. No way to access it here. She needed to get it to Marcus's penthouse where they had prepared equipment to bypass the security. In the conference room, Marcus watched Westfield carefully. The older man checked his watch impatiently. What exactly is this emergency that's interrupting our meeting, Johnson? Westfield asked, irritation clear in his voice. A security breach in our system, Marcus lied smoothly. Nothing serious, but my team needs me to verify some protocols. The security consultant whispered something in Westfield's ear. Marcus noticed the man's eyes darting around the room, lingering on the briefcase. Perhaps we should continue this another day, Westfield said, reaching for his briefcase. Marcus needed to buy more time for Amara to escape the building. Actually, before you go, I'd like to ask about your experience in African markets. He pulled up a map on the conference room screen, particularly here in Sierra Leone. Westfield's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. My work there was limited and quite some time ago. Really? I heard your company had significant interests there around 15 years ago. The security consultant moved closer to Westfield, hand slipping inside his jacket. Marcus tensed, wondering if the man was armed. Westfield's smile was cold. You seem unusually focused on Sierra Leone, Mr. Johnson. Any particular reason? Just doing my research on potential partners, Marcus replied. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A text from Amara. Asterisk out of building. Meeting at backup location. Be careful, asterisk. Relief washed over him. She was safe, at least for now. I think we're done here, Westfield said abruptly, picking up his briefcase. My assistant will contact you about rescheduling. As they stood, Westfield added in a lower voice, a word of advice, Johnson, the past is best left buried. Digging up old stories can be dangerous for everyone involved. The threat hung in the air between them. Marcus met Westfield's gaze steadily. I've never been afraid of danger, Mr. Westfield, especially when the truth is at stake. Westfield's eyes narrowed. Truth is a luxury few can afford. After they left, Marcus waited 15 minutes, then told his assistant he needed to leave for a personal emergency. He took a different exit from the building, constantly checking to make sure he wasn't followed. The backup location was a small hotel 3 miles from Sterling Tower. Marcus entered through the service entrance and took the stairs to room 412. He knocked in the pattern they had agreed on. Amara opened the door quickly, pulling him inside. Were you followed? I don't think so. I took 3 different cabs and walked the last few blocks. Marcus looked around the simple hotel room. Any luck with the tablet? Amara pointed to the table where she had connected the tablet to a laptop. I used the bypass program your friend gave us. It's working, but slowly. There's heavy encryption. Marcus sat beside her, both staring at the progress bar on the screen. How much longer? Maybe an hour. But Marcus, she turned to him, worry in her eyes. What if there's nothing on it? What if we took this risk for nothing? He took her hand. Then we try something else. I'm not giving up, Amara. Not now that I've found you again. She squeezed his hand. Westfield won't stop. When he discovers what's missing, they'll come after us both. Let him try, Marcus said firmly. I built my company from nothing. I know how to protect what's mine. The determination in his voice gave Amara hope she hadn't felt in 15 years. On the run, she had been alone, always looking over her shoulder. Now, facing the danger with Marcus by her side felt different. It felt like fighting back instead of running away. The laptop beeped. The decryption was moving faster than expected. Look, Amara pointed. Files are becoming accessible. Together, they leaned forward, watching as the secrets Westfield had kept hidden for 15 years finally began to come to light. The hotel room grew quiet except for the sound of typing as Marcus and Amara went through the files on Westfield's tablet. Outside, rain began to fall, droplets racing down the window as the afternoon sky darkened. Look at this, Amara said, pointing to a folder labeled Sierra Leone Operations. Her hand trembled slightly as she clicked to open it. Inside were hundreds of documents, shipping manifests, payment records, and emails dating back 15 years. Marcus leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. These weapons shipments, he said, pointing to a spreadsheet. They match what you told me your team discovered. Amara nodded, her face pale. We found crates with these serial numbers. When we opened them, they contained military-grade weapons that were supposed to be destroyed after the war. She scrolled down the list. Westfield was selling them to rebel groups while pretending to support the government. Marcus pulled out his phone to take pictures of the documents. This is proof of illegal arms dealing, but we still need to connect him directly to the explosion that supposedly killed you. Amara continued searching until she found an encrypted email folder. After several attempts, they'd wrote the password. Clean Sweep 2010. That's the year of the explosion, Amara whispered. The first email made them both freeze. It was dated 3 days before the explosion, sent from Westfield to someone identified only as operator. Asterisk humanitarian team from Global Aid Alliance has discovered Catch-a-Site B. Their leader AW has been taking photos and collecting serial numbers. Team scheduled to return to US on Friday with evidence. This cannot happen. Implement clean sweep protocol immediately. No survivors. No evidence asterisk. Amara's hand covered her mouth. AW, that's me. Amara Wilson. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders as she fought back tears. He ordered it. In writing. His voice hardened. We have him. They found more emails after the explosion. Asterisk, clean sweep successful. Building destroyed. 7 bodies recovered. Waiting confirmation on AW asterisk. And then, a week later. Asterisk, still no confirmation on AW local search expanded. Source says unidentified woman taken to village clinic with injuries. Sending team to investigate asterisk. That's when they killed the family who helped me, Amara said quietly. Because of me. No, Marcus said firmly. Because of Westfield. This is all on him. They continued searching and found recent emails about Sterling Innovations. Westfield had been investigating Marcus's company for months, looking for weaknesses, planning his investment to gain control of Marcus's new security technology. One email from just 2 days ago made them both sit up straight. Asterisk background check on Johnson complete. Former relationship with AW confirmed from university records. Still emotionally vulnerable on this point. Use as leverage if necessary asterisk. He knew about us, Marcus said. He's been planning this for months. But he didn't know I was alive, Amara added. Otherwise, these emails would mention it. As they continued reading, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his head of security. Asterisk, sir. Men claiming to be federal agents are at the office asking for you. Something about a stolen tablet asterisk. Almost immediately, Amara's burner phone rang. She answered cautiously. Diana, it's Tanya from cleaning. 2 men in suits were just here asking about you, showing your picture around. They didn't look like real cops to me. After she hung up, Amara and Marcus looked at each other. Westfield is making his move, she said. Marcus nodded grimly. We need to get this evidence somewhere safe. Now. They quickly copied all the files to an encrypted drive Marcus carried. Amara packed their few belongings while Marcus made a call. Michael, it's Johnson. Remember that favor you owe me. I need it now. He lowered his voice. And Michael, bring your FBI credentials. This is official. As they prepared to leave the hotel, Marcus checked the hallway carefully. It was clear for now, but they knew Westfield's men would be closing in. Amara stared at the tablet one last time before wiping it clean. 15 years of running, and now we finally have what we need to stop him. Marcus took her hand. We're not running anymore. Now, we fight back. Thunder crashed outside as they slipped out the service exit, the evidence that could bring down one of America's most powerful men securely in Marcus's pocket. Rain poured down as Marcus and Amara hurried through the back alleys of Chicago. They had abandoned their phones, knowing Westfield could track them. Their meeting point with Michael, Marcus's FBI contact, was a small coffee shop 15 blocks away. We need to hurry, Marcus said, holding his jacket over Amara to shield her from the rain. Westfield will have people everywhere by now. They turned a corner and froze. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked across the street, 2 men in suits standing beside it. Back up slowly, Amara whispered. They retreated, taking a different route. The coffee shop came into view 20 minutes later. Through the window, they could see Michael sitting alone at a corner table, checking his watch nervously. Wait! Amara grabbed Marcus's arm. What if Westfield got to him? What if this is a trap? Marcus studied the street. No suspicious vehicles, no men watching the shop. Michael served with me on the board of the Children's Hospital. He's solid, and he has the federal connections we need. They entered the coffee shop separately. Marcus went first, sitting across from Michael. Amara followed a minute later, taking a table nearby. This better be good, Johnson, Michael said quietly. I'm risking my career meeting you like this. Marcus slid the encrypted drive across the table. Everything you need is on here. Richard Westfield, illegal arms dealing, ordering the deaths of 7 humanitarian workers 15 years ago. Michael's eyes widened. Westfield? He's connected to half the politicians in Washington. That's why we need your help. He's hunting us. At that moment, Amara approached their table. Men outside, 3 of them. Westfield's security consultant is with them. Michael glanced outside, then back at Marcus. Who's this? Amara Wilson. She was supposed to die in that explosion 15 years ago. She's the only surviving witness. Michael stared at Amara in shock. The Sierra Leone bombing. That case has been cold for years. Not anymore, Marcus said. You have the evidence to reopen it and bring Westfield down. Michael pocketed the drive. I need to call this in. Get a team here. The coffee shop door opened, and Westfield himself walked in, flanked by his security consultant and another man. They spotted Marcus immediately. No time, Amara whispered. Michael stood up, badge in hand. FBI, stay where you are. Westfield smiled calmly. Agent Peterson, I see Johnson found you first. Did he tell you he stole private property from me during a business meeting? A business meeting. Marcus stood up. Is that what you call threatening people whose lives you've destroyed? Westfield's eyes finally landed on Amara, and for the first time, his confident expression faltered. Impossible, he whispered. Hello, Mr. Westfield, Amara said, her voice stronger than she felt. Remember me? Amara Wilson, Global Aid Alliance. You ordered my death 15 years ago. The other customers in the coffee shop were watching now, some recording with their phones. Westfield composed himself quickly. I don't know what game you're playing, Johnson, but corporate espionage and these wild accusations will destroy you. Not as much as the evidence we found on your tablet, Marcus replied. Emails ordering the Sierra Leone bombing. The clean sweep protocol. It's all there. Michael stepped forward. Mr. Westfield, I'm placing you under protective custody while these allegations are investigated. Westfield's security consultant moved his hand inside his jacket, but Michael was faster, drawing his weapon. Federal agent. Hands where I can see them. Other customers scrambled away as the security consultant slowly raised his hands. Westfield's face hardened. You have no idea what you're doing, Peterson. One phone call from me, and your career is over. Maybe, Michael agreed. But I've seen enough on that drive to know this needs to go to the anti-terrorism division. And those phone calls you're thinking about making? They won't help once this evidence is in the system. More FBI agents entered the coffee shop, responding to Michael's earlier alert. They surrounded Westfield and his men. As Westfield was being handcuffed, he looked directly at Amara. You should have stayed dead. Amara stepped forward, looking him in the eye. For 15 years, I wasn't really living. Just surviving. Now justice will finally be served. As Westfield was led away, Marcus took Amara's hand. The rain had stopped outside, and sunlight broke through the clouds. It's over, he said softly. Amara shook her head. Not yet. There will be investigations, trials. Westfield has powerful friends. And now, so do you, Marcus replied, looking at the FBI agents securing the scene. You don't have to face this alone anymore. For the first time in 15 years, Amara allowed herself to believe in a future without fear. 6 months after Westfield's arrest, Marcus stood at the window of his office, watching the Chicago skyline as the sun set. So much had changed since that night he had recognized Amara mopping the floor outside his office. The door opened behind him, and Amara walked in, no longer dressed as a janitor, but in a professional outfit that suited her new position as director of Sterling Innovations' Humanitarian Division. Ready to go? Everyone's waiting, she said, smiling. Marcus nodded, gathering his coat. Just thinking about how far we've come. They rode the elevator down to the company's main conference center, where dozens of people had gathered for the launch of Sterling's new Global Aid Initiative. As they entered, applause broke out. Among the crowd were Michael Peterson and his FBI colleagues who had helped build the case against Westfield. The trial was still months away, but the evidence was overwhelming. 3 of Westfield's associates had already accepted plea deals in exchange for testimony against him. I never thought I'd see this day, Amara whispered to Marcus as they moved toward the podium. My name cleared, standing in public without fear. The past months had been challenging. After Westfield's arrest, his powerful friends had tried to discredit Marcus and Amara. Business partners backed away, afraid of the controversy. Sterling's stock had dropped temporarily, but as more evidence emerged and other victims came forward, public opinion shifted. Marcus took the microphone, the room quieting down. Thank you all for coming tonight. 6 months ago, Sterling Innovations made a promise to use our technology not just for profit, but to protect those who risk their lives helping others in dangerous parts of the world. He gestured to Amara. I'd like to introduce the woman who inspired this initiative and who will lead it. Many of you know her story now, how she survived an attack meant to silence her and lived in hiding for 15 years until justice could be served. Amara stepped forward to more applause. Her story had made national headlines after Westfield's arrest. "Thank you," she began, her voice strong and clear. 15 years ago, I was part of a team that discovered illegal weapons being sold to fuel conflict in Sierra Leone. That discovery cost my colleagues their lives and forced me into hiding. She paused, looking at Marcus. But today isn't about the past. It's about ensuring other aid workers have the protection they deserve. She explained the new security systems Sterling had developed: satellite phones with emergency tracking, secure communication networks, and advanced warning systems for humanitarian teams in conflict zones. No one should have to choose between helping others and their own safety, she concluded. And now, thanks to this initiative, fewer will have to make that choice. After the presentation, as guests mingled and celebrated, Marcus led Amara to a quiet corner. "There's someone else here to see you," he said softly. An elderly woman in a wheelchair approached, pushed by a nurse. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. "Mom," she whispered. Tears streamed down her mother's face as Amara knelt beside the wheelchair, embracing her for the first time in 15 years. "My baby girl," her mother cried. "All this time, I thought you were gone." Marcus stepped back, giving them privacy for their reunion. Michael joined him, watching the emotional scene. "You did good, Johnson," the FBI agent said. "Not many CEOs would risk everything the way you did." "Some things are worth the risk," Marcus replied. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Amara had taken her mother home for a proper reunion, Marcus and Amara stood on the rooftop garden of Sterling Tower. "What happens now?" Amara asked, looking out at the city lights. "Westfield's trial, rebuilding your life, growing our humanitarian work." Marcus took her hand. "But whatever comes next, we face it together." Amara smiled, squeezing his hand. 15 years ago, I lost everything in an instant. My work, my identity, you. And now I have a second chance at all of it." She turned to face him fully. "I'm not running anymore, Marcus. I'm home." As they stood together under the stars, the past no longer haunted them. The future, once so uncertain, now stretched before them with promise. Two lives torn apart by violence and greed had found their way back together, proving that even after 15 years of darkness, light could still be found.